I see my time has expired. I yield back.
Mr. Moolenaar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Burke and all the members of the panel, thank you for joining us. And Dr. Burke, I had a question for you based on your research. Where are you seeing more interest in aspiring teachers? Is it a geographic issue? Are there certain fields of study that you're finding there's more interest or less interest in being teachers?
Well, I think it might actually be the type of school that teachers can teach in. We're seeing a real renaissance in classical education in particular. We're seeing a growth in the classical charter school movement. And we're seeing as a result of that, that the classical charter sector is actually working to create their own teacher education pipeline for entering those schools. And I think that's partly in response to the fact that we are seeing so much interest in that particular sector.
And how are they creating that pipeline? One of the things that strikes me is often you'll have students, and I'm sympathetic. We've heard a lot about the debt that students have as they finish their preparation for teaching and the length of time. What kinds of innovations are you seeing in that area that is making it easier for people to transition into teaching?
So within the classical sector, some of these schools are partnering with existing colleges of education at universities where they are philosophically aligned in terms of the pedagogy, the curriculum, et cetera. But then some of these K-12 schools, classical schools, are actually working really in-house to educate and prepare teachers to enter into their classroom. At the undergraduate level, if you have the foresight to end up majoring in education, you can enter the teaching profession relatively easily. However, if you decide later on after getting your bachelor's degree that you want to enter the classroom and become a teacher, for most people, then that means going back to school, going to get a master's degree, spending $40,000, whatever it might be, to earn that master's, and 2 years of time commitment. And that is untenable for a lot of people. So again, it really does come back to reducing those barriers to entry across every type of K-12 education sector, whether it is the classical charter sector, public, private charter, et cetera, and making sure that those mid-career professionals in particular who would be excellent educators have the ability to do so without spending a lot of time and money to obtain paper credentials.
And is there, I'm sensitive to the role of the federal government versus the state government and local, school boards and everything. What role would the federal government have into making those kinds of innovations, that kind of flexibility, more widely available?
Well, one really good option would be allowing flexibility with all existing federal education dollars. It's always important, of course, to remember that the federal government is a small stakeholder in overall K-12 financing, between 8.5 and 10% of overall K-12 financing in a given year. And so these reforms, both from a spending perspective and just good constitutional governance perspective, largely have to happen at the state and local level. But the federal government should provide flexibility with that small slice of funding that it currently does provide through the taxpayer purse, and allow states to put those existing education dollars toward any lawful education purpose under state law. So if a state wanted to take those funds and use it to revamp teacher compensation or advance education choice options for students, or focus on reading achievement, whatever a state might want to do, in conjunction with districts, they should be able to do that with those existing funds.
Thank you. Ms. Weingarten, I wonder if you could respond. It seems that, I hear a lot from people in Michigan, concerns by parents who feel like in public schools that their values are being undermined and their voices are not being heard. Are you hearing that message? And if so, what can be done to restore the confidence that parents have in our public education system?
So thank you for that question, Congressman. What I hear a lot is a lot of frustration. Teachers and parents want more of a voice in terms of, what's happening in terms of a day-to-day basis. And frankly, what I'm hearing this year is that a lot of people wanted more of a way for us to meet the needs of kids, meaning instead of that kids came back with an awful lot of needs. And so we wanted to try to figure out how to meet those needs. So I've heard a lot of, we don't have enough guidance counselors, we don't have enough nurses, we don't have enough of these kind of things. But what we're also seeing, and this is part of the reason why the AFT is pushing our Reading Opens the World program, is that we really need to get back to the basics of focusing on reading, focusing on the kind of community school work that Chair Delora has really championed, and focus on how we create the pathways to jobs into colleges.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, I see I've extended my stay here, so I yield back.